Welcome to the Outlaw Radio Show. This is our interviews edition. These are interviews that we pre-record and we release oftentimes during the weeks that we are on vacation. I'm very excited about this particular interview. Up until this point, we've run a series of interviews, Meet the Outlaws. We did one with Pope Creighton with Creighton and with Justin and with Vinny. One of the other staples of the Outlaw Radio Show, a constant voice amongst our crew, is Deal Daddy Derek. Derek Kennedy, good brother, friend. He's the youth pastor of our church. I've known Derek about almost 5 years now. Yeah. Quite a bit of time. And during that time, I've seen God do amazing things in his life. Again, he's our youth pastor, very involved in our church, and I love doing ministry. And he's been part of the Outlaw Radio Show for several years now. And so I wanted to take the opportunity for our next interview to welcome Deal Daddy. Derek, how you doing, buddy?
I'm beautiful. How are you?
Doing great. Doing great. So I want to kind of dive right into your story. In a lot of ways, you have a familiar story, especially for Southerners, growing up in the church, being in the Bible Belt, wrestling with that faith becoming your own, finding your place within church, discovering what it really means. I think your story, while it has its own kind of unique rises and falls, is very relevant. I think a lot of people will find your story to resonate with some of their own experiences. And so I want to just kind of go right at the beginning. Tell the audience about your upbringing, the early years of being in the Kennedy family, church experiences, siblings. Start kind of from the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, early on, probably devoted, putting in the baptism. No, well, not the baptism early on, but I know from a very early age, church was mandatory. It wasn't optional. We were not required. It was we're going to church on Sunday. It's not you get to that middle school or high school age, you're tired, you want to stay home. It's no, you're going
Where
to
are you
church.
From originally? Are you originally from
Calvary Chapel, Gwinnett? That's the church that I really grew up in. So yeah,
what community? You were kind of in the Monroe area,
yeah,
right?
Monroe, but we spent a lot of time more in Gwinnett and Lawrenceville area. When my parents moved here from California, my dad was stationed out in California in the Air Force.
I did not know that.
Yeah, 10 years, 12 years, something like that. They were stationed out there, lived in California. So either my mom was pregnant with me and then moved out, or they moved out to Georgia because they were closer to family, and then I was conceived. So it was like a year time that they were here. At least
whose family was local?
My dad's family.
So
was
your mom
local.
is a Californian?
Yeah. Well, no, her family's really in South Carolina.
Okay.
So really,
so she's
I
a
think,
Southerner. I was going to be thrown for a loop.
Yeah. She's a Gamecock. Yeah. She likes South Carolina football. So that's really where she was from. I think some of my dad's family was more. I think his mom was here at the time. My grandmother was here at the time. So they moved back. They were stationed in California.
Yeah. Southern roots, military.
Yeah.
How you're the oldest?
Yeah, I'm the oldest of my family. I am 29, will be 30 this year. My brother would have been 25 this year, and my sister is currently 23.
So you're the oldest of three.
Yep.
2 boys and a girl.
Yep, 2 boys and a girl.
So, growing up, did you guys grow up wealthy, middle class, poor?
No, definitely not wealthy. I mean, I'm thankful for the Lord and his provisions. We were, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not, if the food bank didn't exist, we probably wouldn't eat that week. So I'm really thankful, and I recognize all those opportunities. And my mom was working 2 or 3 jobs to make sure we were provided for. My dad was working 1 or 2 jobs to make sure we were provided for. So they were, we definitely were not well off. We were definitely trying to just make ends meet. So yeah, sometimes if it weren't for people bringing food to the bank for us to take home, we wouldn't have eaten that. So
subsequently, you were public school kid.
Yeah.
It wasn't private school or Christian schools. It was.
Oh no, not at all. No, I was homeschooled until 6th grade, and thankfully, Calvary Chapel Gwinnett, they had a good homeschool program. So maybe we'd meet up once a month for a big event. I always remember the yearly Olympics that they would do. So you'd compete in bike races or foot races or just different little things that they do on. So they had a good a large homeschool group for the church that was there. So
you were homeschooled just sixth grade, and
until sixth grade. Then I was thrown into public school.
We'll get to that. We'll circle back to that at some point. So, what earliest memories of church was Calvary Gwinnett? You guys kind of went there your whole life, really?
Yeah, whole life. And like a big part of that was the homeschool group that they had. It was awesome because I remember like the little, art days that they'd have, and like some students, would submit art submissions or things like that. Like it was really cool, and it really was like church focused. It was God focused. The specific schooling that we did was a Becca schooling.
Right,
I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but like that's what we did at our house. Not sure like what everybody else did, but that's what we did.
Christian based,
Christian based. So like definitely like raised into the word. Like I remember singing hymns in the morning. We start the day off with hymns. We're singing, we're practicing, and then we're going through the rest of the day with schooling. And it wasn't like, oh yeah, we're doing homeschool, like I'm off at 11 every day. It was like, nah, we're grinding. Like I'm not done until this is 3 or 4. Yeah, like
your mom was probably a hard school teacher.
I may be remembering that wrong. Yeah, no, me and my mom butted heads. I was very hard-headed. Like if Derek stands for hard-headed and determined or something like that, and like I definitely made that hard on my mom growing up for sure.
So you guys were not well-to-do, but family unit, homeschooling, going to what was a smaller church. Calvary Gwinnett was never a very large, it wasn't like a mega church. It was a very community-driven church.
For sure.
And so you guys, my guess, were very much, and like when the doors were open, you guys were there.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, like there were 2 services going on. We usually went to early service, so I was always kind of happy about that. So I've been an early riser since I was probably like 3 years old.
Okay.
So like
it's just ingrained in me. Right?
Yeah. No, but I like that. Look, the sun is up for a certain amount of the day, and I'm up for the majority of it.
I hear you. So your parents were also very plugged into the church?
Yeah. I would say, we didn't really go to like a ton of extracurricular things. It wasn't until I really got like plugged in high school that I like made it a point where I'm like, yo, I really want to do this. Like I want to go be a part of these things. And it didn't really help that it was like anything we wanted to do was 30, 40 minutes out of the way.
That's right.
So we lived in Monroe, but we were in Gwinnett all the time.
For those that might not understand the geography of that, where you lived and where the church was about 40 minutes away.
Yeah, for sure.
So there was a limitation on how often you guys could be over there.
So like Wednesday nights we'd go sometimes when it was youth group, like we'd be able to go do that. And it really was just working around everybody's work schedule. It wasn't until like I was driving that I was really like, yo, I'm going to go to everything. And that was on my own.
Would you say that you, again, let's like trying to segment the timeline, elementary school and earlier. Formative years, would you say that you were pretty sheltered
from like the world?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think as a youth, I can remember recognizing the financial struggles, whether it was talked about or not. And in far as a sheltering in that way, I recognized that was going on. And moving into middle school and high school, like I wasn't from the world
before we get to
middle way. Yeah.
Before we get to middle school, but you grew up again. I imagine small church, homeschool, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
That like. What? Yeah.
I can get into
when was the first secular music that you listen to?
Oh, secular music, bro. I had an AM FM radio that I won from Awanas that I was able to listen to 95.5 The Beat at nighttime, just like
so you were doing that in like
third grade. Yeah, third grade. Yeah,
so not that sheltered.
Not that sheltered. Like I was exposed to the world from extra things where it was like, okay, it's probably not something my mom wanted me to hear, but I was being exposed to that in ways that I didn't understand at the time too. Okay. So.
What about like your first rated R movie?
I remember being young and watching like Apocalypse Now.
Okay.
Where like I can remember vividly like seeing some scenes from that. It's pretty gory, pretty bloody, where it's like, okay.
My parents still don't let me watch Apocalypse Now.
I wouldn't let myself 42. Watch it now. Yeah. No, but like and it's not something that was like, oh, you shouldn't watch this, or like, yeah, you're allowed to watch this. It was just like it was kind of on and I was not told to leave the room. Type of thing.
Understood. Yeah. Well then let's get to sixth grade, because that becomes within your the timeline here, sixth grade becomes a very monumental transition.
Yeah.
Because now you're going to what would have been Carver Middle School.
Yeah.
Which is,
we had 4 drug dogs lockdowns.
It's a pretty
year.
For those that don't know,
sixth grade
from the area, Carver Middle School is pretty. It's had seasons, but back then at least it was a pretty rough place to go to middle school. Explain what Derek Kennedy's life looked like for those few years.
Man, like my very first day, I can remember vividly of getting onto the bus, going to the very back of the bus and just sitting there and not really worried or thinking about anything. I was pretty excited. Like I was excited for the first day. And we went into this specific neighborhood, a ton of kids got on. And that was the first time I had ever encountered any like quote unquote like racism. I got to, a bunch of these kids rolled up and were like, "What are you doing back here, white boy?" And like literally kicked up to the front. So growing up,
So wait a second. The white kid was in the back of the bus?
Never.
And
like
the black kids kicked the white kids to the front of the bus?
Growing up, like my mom's best, like the color in the ways that we understand it now is like never an issue. We were never raised to be that way. Like my mom's best friend was a black lady with 4 kids constantly at our house all the time. So to me, I had never like known this was an issue or a problem at all. Like never in any way, shape or form had thought about that until that day where I was like really confused and like shoved up to the front of the bus and from that situation, and it was like, no, like that was a really rough day, and I definitely remember that. And then going into school, just how mean people are to like, oh, we don't know this kid, and then just being bullied throughout the year. And like, so I really think that led me to want to or it just developed this sense of like wanting to be received, wanted to be recognized, and wanted to just be accepted. So,
which is a fundamental, especially like you're sixth grader in a new environment. Who doesn't want acceptance?
Well, it just taught me how to lie. It taught me how to lie and want to be approved by others because others were doing bad things. And it wasn't that I got caught into bad people. It was like I got caught up with some people who were just doing dumb things. And so I just learned how to lie to try and get out of it, but just inevitably led me into being in trouble. And when I was younger, I just questioned everything. And I attribute that to just being, we were taught to question things. We were taught to be like smarter in that way, where like the Bible tells us to discern the spirits. I was literally just as a sixth grader new to school discerning the spirits. So when I would be, but in school when a math teacher gives you something to do and I'm like, well, and that's the other thing. It was like academically we were already doing things on an 8th grade level of what like 6th grade. I was like, oh, I remember some 6th grade papers would have been, I'm like, I did this in 3rd grade. Like I remember those types of situations. So it was like I was just literally bored. So I would question the teacher, end up getting in trouble for those things, and then just causing problems in that type of way. So
the middle school years were not smooth.
They were rough. No, they were definitely rough for sure. The transition was not a smooth one at all.
So you grew up in an environment where you were challenged to think for yourself. To not accept dogma or just doctrine at face value.
If the world is telling you what's against the Bible, you're taught automatically to like, question things like this, go against what's being taught to you.
But that wasn't exactly embraced or accepted by authorities in your life.
To that point, no, it hadn't been. Like everything that I'd been taught and the people I'd been around up to that point had been, spot on with the things I'm already learning. Like I'm learning the Bible.
But this was different.
Yeah.
So in middle school, you're dealing with academic boredom because of just the transition to that. A bit of reverse discrimination. Discrimination is discrimination, whatever direction it goes in, which is kind of a story that's not told a lot, but that absolutely exists. And then just the longing to be accepted. Would you say that while the middle school years were rough, did you develop a friend group? Where did church play a role? Did it play a role? Did it maybe drop the ball? Like try to walk us through those years, setting the stage for this next season of high school?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in middle school, this is kind of the same thing. Like, we weren't going to a ton of Wednesday night studies, but we were going to Sundays always. So, like, in 7th grade, I was able to establish a great friend group. Like, I ended up being able to be tested, going to the gifted program. So it was all like the quote unquote advanced classes. So, like, all of our advanced classes were the same exact kids for the most part, just going to different classes together. So, like, we're literally, if there's 30 kids in a class, we're all just moving in between the classes, going to the same things. Other than your electives, like, that was different, but for the most part, I was able to establish a solid group, and that kind of stayed consistent through high school because you're in AP classes, right, you're in the advanced classes, whatever, and that stayed consistent. So yes, in 7th grade was able to get a little more consistent friend group. Ended up in an alternative school for a little bit because I went camping. I had a lighter in my backpack and just left over from the camping trip. And I was in the bathroom and I was like, yo, watch this. Tried to do this magic trick that I remember seeing from the library that we went to. Guy lit up a roll of toilet paper. Pow! Went lit up just like that. And I was like, all right, cool. Watch this. And I was like, I know. And lit it and it just kept burning and turned into this inferno that, like, I had to, like, stomp out on the ground, put it out, throw it in the toilet. The guy was in the bathroom, ended up telling on me. He saw me. I tried to lie about it. I tried to do the thing. I threw the lighter out of the window right on the corner to where it'd be hidden.
Get stitches.
Yeah,
man.
and no, I did. I know exactly who to told on me, but
so
whatever.
you got kicked out of Carver
yes,
first?
And the thing is like it fell on 2 or 3 different holidays. So I was only gone technically for 30 days, but it ended up in total being like a month and a half, or a half a month, a full month, and the other half of a month because it fell on those breaks. And the thing about alternative school too is, like, it does not matter what you do. There are fights that go on every single day. This was literally just, for a lack of a better word, in the hood. There were the middle schoolers met, and honestly, it was a great setup because we'd meet at 8 a.m. Or honestly, I think it was 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. until 11 a.m. So it was only 3 hours a day. Everything was done on the computer. They didn't monitor anything that you could do. You would do your 3 lessons. You could do the same exact 3 lessons every single day. It wouldn't matter as long as you did your 3 lessons. So that was like, you're not learning anything. As long as you did that, you got your 3 apples, you could do whatever you wanted on the computer. So that's how I got into RuneScape. RuneScape old school. So, but like that was, it was terrible. Like, and
when you bring that up, Creighton, I know you're off camera, but that was the 4th season of The Wire, where they have the hoodlums that they take down into the basement for the alternative middle school program. I just am picturing White Derek.
I didn't talk to anybody for 30 days. I had one friend that was in there from middle school. He was trying to get me to join a gang. So I was just like, bro, I love you, but I cannot talk to you. Like, I can't. And, back to my point, what I was saying, if you get in trouble, it doesn't matter what it was, you get an automatic 10 days added onto your thing. So that's 2 full weeks of school. On my very last day, day 30, I finished this day. I'm done. I get to go back to school. This kid, Ken, he was there. He got in so many fights through the whole time, did not care. He didn't care if he added another 10 days on a thing. He was like, yo, I'm locked in. This is where I go to school. Like, came up, slapped me on the back of the neck, and was just like waiting for me to get up, and was just like bucking over me. And be like, what are you gonna do, white boy? You're not gonna do anything. You're not gonna do anything. And literally, I was sitting there. I had my textbook in my hand. I was like, I can turn around, bust him in the jaw, and just get on top of him. Like, he's not bigger than me. It was not a bigger kid. Was literally just a bully to other people. This is not the first time he's done this thing, but me on day 30 was like, I will be out of here today. If I do this now, it's another 10 days. So that day, I was like, literally just ignored it. Completely ignored it. And like, he finally went away. Like, after 2 minutes, the teacher's in the middle of the room, like seeing this, watching this happen, doing nothing. So literally, and it went by, finished that day, but that was on my very last day. Like, I'll always remember that because it was just like, all right, I was being tested in that moment.
So throughout all of this season of life, transitioning into high school, I know. I mean, obviously, you're a believer. You would consider yourself a Christian, But I mean, like at what point would you say that like either it was maybe a backslide or you just kind of walked away a little bit? Like, was there a season where that relationship with the Lord wasn't quite what it needed to be?
I understand what the rod and the staff mean. The rod is to guide, the staff is to correct. And so I had to deal with a lot of the staff where I understand free will, where like God's not going to force you to choose the right thing. I understood the right thing, but chose to go against it and chose to do the wrong thing. It ended up being corrected and it hurt. Like it ended up being smacked and told to go the right way. I got way more of the rod than I did the staff, but ended up on the right path. So I understand that passage of like, no, the rod's for the staff is for guiding, the rod is for correcting.
Right.
I got a lot more of the rod, and it was because I understand like, oh, like he's not going to force us to choose to do the right things. Like we are always going to be presented with opportunities to be able to follow him, and our actions will glorify him, or not follow him, and our actions won't glorify him. Either way, he still loves us. I can know the difference between what's right to do and what's righteous or what's not. And a lot of times, like, yeah, sure, it might not be the worst decision you could ever make, but it wasn't glorifying to the Lord, and continued to go down that path until the point where it's like, hey man, I still want you.
From the perspective of the shepherd, the staff and the rod, whether they're two separate instruments or one instrument used two different ways.
Yeah.
Either way, it is an instrument of love. Like they're used by the shepherd out of love for the sheep and the sheep's best interest. Just generally kind of run us through your high school years and what that looked like. And again, relationship with the Lord, relationships with church, those dynamics.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like, well, specifically, it was more of like, okay, I had a relationship with like drugs since I was like in 7th grade.
In what way?
Just like, you know, between 6th grade and 7th grade was presented to marijuana, like no hard drugs or anything like that. Like I was always like, no, I'm never going to do that. But what was presented with like those types of things, and I was like, this isn't harming anybody. I'm not doing anything, you know, necessarily bad. It was just like in a group of people that was doing that thing. So like ended up doing that thing. And, you know, that went on for at least, you know, next couple of years until like 10th grade. And it wasn't until like 10th grade where I was like really got established into committing to church. Like I was still going to church throughout this whole entire time. I was still going on mission trips. I was still doing these things. Like I was still, you know, like, no, I believe the Bible. Like I believe that this is true. And there'd be so many times where I'm hanging out with somebody like who is smoking or is drinking at that age, who is like, I would be the witness and I would talk about the Bible. Like I'm still like, oh, say if they're passing something to me, I'm hitting it, passing it on, but I'm talking really about the Bible to them. Like, and no, there were a lot of times where I was like kind of convicted, where I'm like, but then kind of blew it off. I'm like, well, I'm the one here now that's able to talk to them about God, and like, you know, but at the same point, it's like, well,
being at the strip club, who's going to evangelize to these women?
Yeah, no, and it's like, okay, well, you know, at what point is your being there going to actually be a witness to, like, you're doing the same exact thing. So what's differentiating you from the world versus like saying that you're a Christian? And so, but there were a lot of times where I was like, I still hung out with it for the next like 2-3 years. I still hung out with the people that were doing those things. But like, if you're passing this to me, I'd pass it on. And then that would end up starting the conversation. Like, oh, you don't smoke? Or like, you don't do this? Right. And she'd be like, nah, man, like I'm a Christian. Like, I just don't, like, I understand, like, this doesn't do anything for me. Like,
so you had I would say generally a sheltered developmental period. Middle school kind of rocks your world. You go to Carver Middle School.
Yeah.
And then like 9th, 10th grade, there's, you know, living the life. But then you had mentioned that things started to change in 10th grade with your walk with the Lord, with your relationship with church. Was there an impact of a youth pastor or?
Oh yeah, For sure.
Walk us into like that transition and then what that looked like through the rest of high school.
Yeah, man. Like Jonathan Delgado was I don't know if we're allowed to, I'm not doxing, but like his full name, putting him out there.
Social security number 000-555.
Yeah, exactly. No, like
address,
he was just
zip code,
like in the way that he loved us and the way that he taught. It was like, man, I had known the whole Bible. Like I had known the Bible my whole life. It's not like I didn't know the difference between right and wrong. I just purposely chose to do wrong. But it wasn't until like just getting connected in our youth group and getting connected with those around us, like actually going and doing things and seeing the Lord work miracles and in other people's life. Like I remember all the youth group things that we went to, or we'd go to the mall and we would evangelize. And that was the craziest thing, because we'd be like, all right, you're getting in a group of 2 or 3. And literally there's no formal structure to it. It was like, yo, go around. We're going to pray before, and we're going to go walk around. We're going to meet back up here at this point. Just walk around. The Lord's going to, if the Lord talks to you.
Mall?
Yeah. Mall of Georgia. Yeah. We just go to Mall of Georgia, dude, and just walk around. And it was mostly like 2 middle schoolers with 1 high schooler. Go walk around. And like all those times it was so weird, because literally like 1 or 2 or like of us would feel like, hey, I think we need to go talk to that person, and having the Lord work in your heart, and you go up and talk to him like, hey, no, this is kind of weird, but we're with so-and-so church. We're just going around asking if anybody needs like prayers or anything we can pray for you about. And then like 9 times out of 10, people would just like start bawling, or like,
it's amazing the responses.
And it was crazy. And so like seeing the Lord work in those types of ways really solidified my faith, and like, okay, dude, God is real. He does stuff, like he's here, like, and that really kind of solidified and then just on my own personal faith and things going through, like things didn't necessarily always work out, but it was like, I just see God's hand. Like it doesn't make sense for him not to be in things. And I really, 2 verses that I really resonated with, well, 3 from a very early age. I was like, it pleased God that Solomon asked for wisdom. So I latched onto that. I was like, all right, Lord, please just give me wisdom. That allowed me to go through a multiplicity of problems, of situations, of lifestyles, to be able to learn from that. And also just his ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. To be able to, when things happen, when deaths happen, when whatever happens, it was like, it's not for me to understand. I'm not going to ask why, like, oh, why God? Like, I'm never mad at God, because I understand he has a greater plan. If his will for my life is just to exist for 50 years, to be able to talk to one person for them to be saved, right, then that's my purpose. Like, it doesn't matter. And so I just understood from a very early age that whatever I'm here for, it's whatever his will is. Like, it's not mine.
So you got through high school, serving Jesus, had a mentor and a youth pastor, somebody you're still in contact with today. Yeah. Mom and dad still going to church. You get out of high school. Do you go to college? What did you do out of high school?
Yeah, I went to college. I went to Valdosta State for a year and really just ended up playing rugby, had an unlimited meal plan, and gained not the freshman 15, I gained the freshman 40. And so I got yoked, I got a little fat, and just unlimited meal plan. Had a great, and that was awesome too, because all the foreign exchange students hung out with the rugby players. So I had friends from all over the world. And so
how'd you get into rugby?
Oh, I played rugby. I just really liked it in high school. In 10th grade,
how did you play in high school? It's not like I know of a lot of rugby league.
I made the club. I went and advocated for us to try. I got 200 and something signatures for us
Monroe area high
school. At Monroe area high school, and I was the quote unquote captain. Got all these different signatures, all these different teachers. Probably closer to 10th and 11th grade. And you know what was funny? I ended up playing for the Athens Eagles men's team. When I went up to one of the guys, his name was Dustin. He had my phone number still saved in his phone as Derek Kennedy Prospect from many years ago, because I was trying to get him to come out to coach us. So when I went 6 years later to go play for them, he was like, dude, I already have your number. And I was like, you remember me then? He was like, I do. I remember you. So
why did you get into rugby?
I just liked rugby. I didn't like basketball. basketball because you couldn't be physical. I didn't like football because I thought it was too many rules. I played soccer. I wrestled. I played tennis because they needed one more man to have a varsity team, and my friends got me to come play on. Had no care for tennis.
Like,
in
what
any
was
way,
your
shape, or
first
form.
exposure to rugby?
Just
Was it like TV, and you're like,
bro,
that
just
looks
TV,
awesome.
and yeah, I was like, no, this is awesome. And then you read the history of rugby. I was like, okay, rugby came before football, so this is OG. Football is just rugby with way more rules and way more pads. Like, so I just liked it a lot, and so I ended up playing in college. Ended up playing for the men's team. We never got our club team off the ground, but I had 7 kids who would come out and we'd play on a Tuesday and Thursday. We would just like,
what is 7-man rugby like?
I mean, 3 or 4 dudes like practicing and running things. Like, you know, like I led a practice team of 7 guys who would come out there and play. It was fun.
So you go to Valdosta. How long are you at Valdosta?
I was there for the first year. I was in, my major was business management. At the time, I was doing a custom longboard and skateboard company, and so I'd make custom longboards for people, like based off of their height and their weight and what type of longboard that they wanted. But like towards the end of the year, I was like, I don't need to go 3 more years to do this. Like, I can figure out how to get a loan for a shop. That's the only thing I was doing. I was already doing that and like making some money.
We're thinking about starting a business.
Yeah, I was thinking about starting a business doing, because I would longboard. I skateboarded for a long time, like making the longboards. Like, I've been pretty crafty with my hands, and you know, I was thankful for that. But that's the main reason why I didn't go back, because that was the goal at the time. So
you decide not to go for a second year.
I was like, what do I need to go for 3 more years of debt when I can just try and figure out how to get a loan for a shop?
So what happened with that?
Nothing. So
okay,
just did it for a little while. Sold maybe like 2 or 3 more boards, and you know, that was kind of it.
So now you
ended up working construction.
Okay, so you just started working.
Yeah, just started working. Like, I had been working like never been on a spring break, never been on like any trip like that.
Well, again, because any money, if you're gonna have money, you had to earn it.
Yeah, so exactly. Like, my class ring, worked for my class ring, bought my class ring. If I was wanting to play a sport, I had to work like and go play the sport. Like, my parents wanted to help out, it just wasn't that they could often. Right. So it was like, I just knew, like I said, from an early age, I knew if I wanted something, I had to get it. So yeah, like, I never went on a spring break. Started working in a warehouse in Sewanee when I was 16. Every spring break, every Christmas break, Thanksgiving break, whenever I could. And I was like, I was making good money. I was like $15 an hour working in a warehouse. You know, it's 40, 50 hours a week. Like, you know, so I was like just saving all that money up and doing what I could.
So what happens next? You're working a job, trying to make money. What happens next in your life?
Yeah, I mean, really at that point,
you're still going to Calvary Gwinnett at the time?
Yeah, still going to Calvary Gwinnett at the time. I think, you know, a couple years went by. I was living in my parents' house. I ended up I went to Lanier Tech in the Motorsports Vehicle Technology program. Ended up getting plugged in with a couple different race shops. Ended up working for IMSA and NASCAR, which is the International Motorsports Association.
So you're 20, 21?
Yeah, I was probably like, let's say that, like 22, 23, or somewhere around there. And I was like, I'd be flying out for a week, home for a week or two, flying out for a week, home for a week or two. And I was working like part-time with another shop, which was also racing and traveling. So I was like, dude, now like 26 to 28 weeks out of the year, I was flying in different states.
So why did that stop?
Well, it led up to, so I was working for a race shop in Athens. We worked on a bunch of different race cars that we would run in SCCA championship cars and stuff, and ended up getting connected and married to this girl from Colombia who, you know, in 2015, I went on my second mission trip to Colombia. And, you know, so I had talked to her through over the years.
This wasn't a mission trip to Columbia, South Carolina.
No, not Columbia, South Carolina. This was South America.
Columbia.
Yeah. No, but like, you know, we just told ourselves a fairy tale of, out of all 50 states you could have ended up in Georgia. She was an au pair, so she was like a nanny for kids. So you
met her in Colombia on a mission trip, and then she
talked casually over a couple of years, so it wasn't like we didn't know each other, but hindsight, it's 50-50.
Yeah, right.
So,
but she ends up coming up here to be an au pair, and it's like, hey, I know somebody here, let's hang out.
Yeah. And just started dating, started talking really quick, and the things with like, you know, being an au pair, I was like, I only got like, you know, 4 or 5 months left. Like, just go ahead and start dating and really like
stay in America,
streamlined to that process. So that was really the whole reason for it. Yeah. So that's why I stopped working at that place. And then I ended up working sales after that at Athens Ford, but that is why I stopped working there. So yeah, I ended up pretty much as soon as we got married, the abuse started. Just started getting beat up pretty much every other night or every night for the next 9 months.
Let me ask you a question. You think that it was that she wanted to marry you to stay in America?
I mean, you know, you can speculate. It's what it seems like.
Yeah,
it seemed like, because at first it was all like, you know, hippy dippy. Everything was good and everything was great. And you think this is a godly woman. But then, like, immediately, bro, it was after New Year's. Like, we had been married for like 5 days. And then, bam, like all of a sudden, she's like, I want to go back to Colombia. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I was like,
wait a
just
second.
After, yeah, and I was like, okay, like, you can go. And then, you know, bought plane tickets, had everything set up, and she's like, no, I won't go. And I was like, what? So literally it was just that constantly.
Things got weird. Things got really weird real fast.
Yeah, really weird, really bad,
and abusive. And we don't have to get into all the particulars, but it was. Now at that time, you're not really plugged in anymore. Because I'm getting close to entering your timeline.
Yeah,
so
before then I was living in Athens, so I was going to Athens, not Athens church, but there was a smaller church in Athens. I was heavily a part of them, was going to men's groups all the time, was going to like the young youth, because I was like 22, 23, it was just hanging out with them all the time. It was awesome. Like, it was awesome group of guys, and like they just loved the Lord in a crazy ways, and it was awesome.
So you were selling cars, still plugged into church. You had been through some major trauma. Just some relational trauma, some deep scar tissue. And your parents at some point ended up leaving Calvary Gwinnett. Mm-hmm. So you were already going someplace else, but they started coming to Calvary 316.
Yeah.
Probably around that time. I met you, I think you had come one Sunday.
Yeah, it was like the Sunday or two before, like, Christmas Eve.
It was late 2019.
Yeah.
And but it was specifically, I'll never forget, we had a Christmas Eve event at the Parkins house where we roasted a pig and did a whole thing.
That was the first time I ever came and like hung out with people. And like, for me, that was a big deal. That was my like first time being out in like public and hanging out with other people. So like, for me, that was a big deal.
Since you had really the divorce.
Oh yeah,
and
bro. I hadn't talked to my parents. My parents didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew what was going on. Didn't have any social media. It was deleted, not by my hand. Like everything was cut off from the world. So like, that was my first time like being out and being able to like hang out with people. So it was really,
and even then, if I recall, like the relationship was toxic. There were restraining orders, police involved. And then like trying to get divorced was happening, but like 3 months after I meet you,
you know, COVID happened.
The pandemic hits.
Yeah, literally.
And like courts stopped meeting.
Yeah, they stopped meeting. So that pushed everything off for like at least a year and a half. So it was like we were legally separated at that point, at the point of her arrest. We were legally separated. And thankfully, because I was a victim, I was able to have victim advocacy through the courts. So I was able to literally. But yeah, that happened directly afterwards. So it just prolonged the whole process of that going on.
I remember when COVID hit, you were like, you know, we were trying to figure out what to do at the church, and you were like, hey, I'd known you for like 2.5 months.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, I'm not really afraid of this thing. If you need help up at the church figuring out the live stream, I'm down.
Yeah.
And so like you were one of, like, that was the first experience really in
I remember
ministry.
all those days, dude. It was super fun.
we didn't have cameras, so we were like trying to stream through an iPhone.
Yeah, nobody up there just setting up the iPhone, running through your sermon.
It was and one of the other people that were up there helping us at the time was a young lady named Kelly.
Yeah.
And that's where kind of you guys, again, it's the pandemic, so it's hard to really meet and date many people, but you guys kind of connected, and over the course of the next 2 years, she ends up becoming your wife, and I officiated that wedding, and that wedding was October of 21, if I recall.
Yep, maybe 4 years this year.
Which was 3 months before I ended up going through my own trial.
Yeah,
it would have been the last wedding I had ever done. Would have been yours. I wanna bring up two other events I want you to talk about, and I know that they'll both be difficult. They're difficult conversations, but part of the whole idea here of what we might even just call the Everyman with an Amazing Story series You know, we all go through storms and trials and tribulations. And, you know, Derek touched on one season of life. I want to leave that a little vague because he's married to a wonderful woman. But there are two other things that have happened over the since I've met you that I know have been impactful. But I do think you've handled them very, very well. And it's worth you telling your story in order to provide encouragement for people that go through similar things. And that was and I'll set it up by, you know, so your mom and dad started coming to Calvary 316 and they both plugged in. Your dad was helping us with some of the sound and playing a little bit of electric guitar here or there. And your mom was helping out with various, you know, kind of anything that needed to be done. And then during the pandemic, your parents kind of disappeared from us. And I had reached out to your mom. She made the comment that your dad didn't want to come to Calvary 316 anymore. He wanted to go back to Calvary Gwinnett. And I felt like even when I talked to your mom, when she communicated that, I felt something deeper was kind of going on here. And why don't you kind of take that from there? Because your mom ends up coming back, but she comes back without your dad.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I can't speak to why they left. I don't know what his reasoning is for that, but my mom was trying to be a respectful wife and, you know, respect her husband in that decision.
Follow his lead.
And, you know, and honestly, it could at the end of the day be that he was being convicted by what was being said because we preach straight from the Bible, and the Bible is the truth and the word of God. So I honestly cannot see any other reason that would be justifiable for why he would want to leave. Do I know? No, I don't know. And it's not really something that
he ends up walking out on your mom.
Yeah, ends up walking out on my mom. It was a text that we got at 10 a.m. on just a random day of us after going on a weekend to a corn patch. Like, I remember the weekend, I remember the day. And, you know, the Bible says not to speak. I'm just not going to say anything to disgrace him, but it led a lot of... You
don't have to speak to intent or try to get into the motivations of someone.
No, man, but it drove me to a lot of hate and a lot of distrust and a lot of just disgust and just a lot of anger.
Yeah.
Like a lot of anger. And like, this isn't something that was like new. Like, we butted heads about things in the past, you know, to not get into too many details, but it's not like you didn't see it coming, but in the times that like I had brought up those things to challenge against, it was like just met with nothing. And so like, it was just a very frustrating situation. So, you know, and you know, the years have passed and it went, you know, from like a year or two of maybe not talking to each other to now where I'm like, okay, you know, somewhat amicable, but you know, to the point where I'm just like, man, I just can't, like, I'm my own man now. And I feel bad because everything that I've learned to be as a man is from watching you and not wanting to do the same thing.
That's heavy.
Yeah. And so, and like, how do you say that to somebody too? And if you watch, is like, dude, you're watching, but these are the things that like I feel and I think about. And it's like, how do you ignore the fact that like these things have happened, and then to just, when we meet up, to completely ignore those things and act like nothing's happened? How do you do that? I don't get it. So
I think that's fair. How is the Lord, like, what has the Lord done in your life through that painful experience? What has he taught you? Like how do you know, God works all things for the good.
Yep.
Terrible in that situation, brutal for your mother, but like, you're an innocent bystander. You're just a son watching these things happen, watching a marriage fall apart, watching how it affects your siblings, how it works its way just systematically. How has the Lord worked that for good in your life?
Just a teaching. It's just lessons, and just teaching me how to be a better man, what I need to do, what not to do. Moving on to the things that I need to do, how I need to be a man for Kelly, how I need to support our family, like how I need to move forward. And I think faith is a huge thing, and establishing like, look, I'm the leader of my household, and I saw what the lack of leadership did to a household in our brothers and sisters, and within my mom, and within himself, of emotional intelligence and understanding the fact that we're given emotions for a reason, and being able to actually sort through them and address things and not run away from things and hide from things when they are hard, but actually going through the suck and dealing with the things that need to be dealt with, not running away from everything.
Yeah.
And so really, I mean, that's what the Lord taught me through those things, just lessons. Like, and I don't know how to really explain it any better than that, but it's just like, yeah, it's everything. Like, it's who I am now because of seeing those things.
You'll figure out how to articulate it more when you become a dad.
Yeah.
And then those lessons will become even more pronounced and defined.
It's like I get it, but I just don't know how to explain it.
And then you'll get it. And then you'll get it.
Yeah.
You know? No, for sure. The other thing, and so that happened a couple of years ago. Yeah. Your brother was how many years younger than you? 2 years.
I'm no. Sorry, 4. My brother and sister are 2 years apart. So me and him are 4 years apart. He would have been 25 this year.
But you were very close to your brother growing up. I mean, he had the same general.
I mean, yes, for the most part.
He was a different personality than you, for sure.
I just wish I would have been a better brother. There's a lot of things, and like in my regrets, where I remember like being over at the neighbor's house. The neighbor had 4-wheelers and we'd ride all the time. Me and the friend were real good friends. We'd ride for like 45 minutes, but then say Connor got like 5 minutes. So like there was just a ton of things where I'm like, dude, I just suck as a brother. And that could be, from seeing things in media and TV where I'm just like, we were all so individualistic where it wasn't until later on I realized, I'm like, dude, I just suck. And then I'm thankful that me and him had opportunities to talk to, though, through situations that we remembered as child.
Well, real quick, to add some depth to that, because I know what you're talking about within its context. What you're saying has a deeper depth if you know what happened. Yeah. So why don't you explain what happened to your brother, and then we can work backwards to kind of your processing of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, he passed away from an overdose. It was on a night. He had been doing Muay Thai for a year and thought that had been doing really good at times. Now, he had been struggling with drugs for a while.
And then had really started getting his life together.
It seemed like he was doing better and doing good, and meeting up with him, he just like seemed like himself again. Seemed like he was doing better, bright-eyed, actually able to have a conversation, talk with him and stuff. And then and I felt really bad because we missed the night that he had like his first debut fight.
That was a big deal.
Night. It was a Saturday night, and he passed away from an overdose that morning, like 2, 3, whatever. I don't know what time, but
from what I heard, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that him and his friends had rented an Airbnb in Atlanta, and had come back from the fight, and it's a fight. Yeah. And he's like, I'm going to take a shower.
Yeah, they got home late that night, took a shower, woke up, shower still gone, with him dead in it.
Yeah. So the theory is that he took something for pain, and it was probably laced with fentanyl or something of that effect. Yeah,
maybe.
Something like that.
Maybe.
I know
I won't get into the details of that, but yeah, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. I know that there's questions about it. But either way, he didn't intentionally kill himself. It wasn't. And
that's kind of where my mind went to at first, because like I immediately felt so bad. I was like, oh no, like nobody showed up for the fight. I don't know if my mom and Sue went up there. Like we didn't go. Like wonder if nobody showed up for him. He just finally felt so alone that he took his own life. And that's where my mind first went to.
There doesn't seem to be evidence to that.
No, right. Not at all.
That was the enemy.
Yeah, it was not. No, and the toxicology doesn't support that either. So.
Right, for sure. But just a tragedy. I remember getting a phone call early Sunday morning that you were on the way to the hospital, and just a brutal thing. Yeah. I know you've already kind of mentioned your regrets about being a better brother. We could always be better. I'll let you continue to process that as you'd like. Be careful about what's the enemy, what is true and what's not.
Well, it's just like some things like, also you're a kid. Like, you don't know what you're doing is wrong. Like, you don't know. And a lot of things is like, man, I was just so selfish. Like, I wish I would have just been like a little more caring, a little more loving in these ways. And, a lot of the times it's just like, you were a dumb kid. Like, you're choosing the wrong thing. But at the same time, I'm just like, I just wish I wasn't.
Even in the later years, it's like, the kicking yourself about not going to Atlanta late on a Saturday night to see a fight. It's like you just got married, and you've got other priorities. It's like that's very difficult, and it's easy to beat yourself up over that. But I think that there's some grace to it. What would you say to anybody that might be watching, listening to your story about having a sibling that is struggling? Like, what advice would you give to that person? What advice would you give to somebody that has gone through or is going through a similar experience? I had a phone call yesterday with a young lady whose younger brother, had gotten clean, and last Thanksgiving, they were playing Uno. And they went upstairs, and he had been sober, but decided to take a hit and didn't realize that he couldn't handle it, and had an OD'd in the bathroom upstairs during Thanksgiving. Like that's a real thing. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
For me, I've never dealt with anything like that. It's very difficult to relate, to have the words to say. I mean, I can point to scripture and things that are true.
Yeah.
But you can speak to that. So maybe kind of, as we wrap up your story here, why don't you put a few ribbons on some counsel, some advice for people that have and are going through things of that kind of a heavy nature. And if you want to speak to people that, again, you're a youth pastor, and man, half of marriages into divorce, and you ended up being in a divorced family in your 20s, which was different. But however you want to close it out, sharing your thoughts, exhortations. I know we have a segment on Outlaw Radio we call "Here's the Deal," Daddy Derek, but your race is still very fresh. I
was gonna say, when it comes to a testimony, it's like, bro, I mean, it can lead up to today. So like, if my testimony is what the Lord's doing in my life, it's active, it's still current. Yes. Thankfully. Our angle is,
what has He done? And if you'd like to end with, if you'd like to give some advice and then end with what He's doing, you can roll with that as well.
Yeah.
Why don't you do that? We'll do those two things, and then we'll wrap it up.
When it comes to those who are like grieving, or you're dealing with a loss, like, it's not going to get better pain-wise, but the Lord reveals to you why you have to go through it, or like what the reason is for. And the reason could be to allow you to understand what loss means here on this earth, to be able to minister to somebody else who's going through the same thing, to be able to share like, hey, you know what? The longer that I'm here on this earth, the more that I understand I'm not here forever. Like, this isn't our home. Like, we're not supposed to be here. The longer I'm alive, the more like I end up finding myself like yearning for heaven, to have, when Paul talks about like the release from this flesh, like I understand that more and more the longer that I'm. It's not that I don't enjoy my life or I'm not taking glory. It's like I just understand it way more, that like, this isn't it. Like, this is what we're called to do now, but I understand I'm not supposed to be here for forever. Like, this isn't our home. And the grief is something that I definitely went through. I went through a counselor. Like, it really messed me up. And one big thing that she talked about was like, some people hide grief in joy and act like nothing's wrong and everything's okay, and they mask it and like are overly excited about everything. But other people mask it in like its anger and its depravity. And the thing is, like, when we try to submit one emotion, is it the amygdala? What's the there's the specific part in our brain where all of our emotions are housed, and you can't effectively
Limbic
submit.
system?
No, not the limbic system. It's like not the hypothalamus or whatever system in our brain that deals with emotions. You can't effectively submit one. If you effectively submit grief, you effectively submit happiness.
It's the Andre Iguodala.
Yeah, something like it. Might be the amygdala. But you can't do that. Like, it just doesn't work. And so it'll just lead you to nihilism and being numb and not wanting to get your hopes up for anything, for fear of being disappointed or fear of being hurt again. And that's not healthy either way. Like, our emotions are given to us for a reason. And there's a time to grieve. There's a time for joy. And if we can take, like, all right, this isn't about me. Like, God's will for his life is not his will for my life. It's not his will for your life or anyone else's life. So what do I need from this? And if this is all allowing me to go through this, to just be able to minister to somebody else, then that's the reason, whatever. His ways are not our ways, and his thoughts are not our thoughts. And that's a hard thing to humble ourselves to, submit our pride to. We're like, well, I want to know why. I want to know why this happened and what's going on. I'm like, hey, you might not get it. You might not understand. You might not know the reason why. Like, you just have to understand, look, God's ways are not our ways. His thoughts aren't our thoughts. But he does have a reason. He does have a plan according to his will for those who love him. He makes all things work together. So a testimony of what God's done. What's he doing? Let's close with that. Man, what are you up to now? I am super thankful with the youth group. I love them. They are awesome. They are so individually different, and it's so like God's word is breathing. And like, I understand, and you see, like, say if there's 12 kids, each of them is a single different body part. So you understand that, like, the church, like, you can understand, like, the church is made up of different body parts, but in a whole group and you're housing all of them, you see, like, you're all built for this thing, and you're so weirdly worked together, and you're all awesome. And so that's been really cool. And also edifying to the hard things, to the grief, to the pain, to be able to, when a child or a kid or whatever is having a problem, you're like, oh, thank you, Lord. I realize now that, like, this is why I had to go through this now. So, like, the things that you're bringing to me, I understand 100%. And now I have a godly perspective of how the Lord allowed me to get through this. These are the things that I was dealing with in that time. And I recognize it might not be 100% exactly the same situation, but it's like, I was allowed to go through this to be able to help others and to be able to minister to those who are now going through it. And so, like, bro, it's been awesome. I love it. The kids are crazy and keeps me young. I think it's awesome. We ate with a family friend the other night, and they were like, oh man, I'm 25, I'm so old. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to be 30 this year, and I feel younger than you. Right. Like, they keep you young. It's awesome.
Any kids on the horizon? Yeah.
I mean, we're definitely, Lord willing, on the way. It'd be good.
Be careful what you say at this point.
Hey, man. It'll work out when it works out. So,
Derek, thank you so much for doing this and just opening up your story and telling the folks, whether it's the Outlaw Radio crew or it's the Calvary 316 Church family, just for them to get a glimpse into who you are and your heart. And I'm excited that come November, so probably a couple weeks after this actually airs, you're going to be cutting your teeth, filling in for me on a Sunday morning. So I'm trying to think through the time frame. In fact, it might be literally the same week that this airs that you'll be filling in for me. And so this will give the congregation, our family, a chance to learn a little bit about you and the context for what you'll be sharing. So thank you so much. Thanks for joining us with this interview series. You can check out everything related to Outlaw Radio by going to outlawradio.org. That's our website. You can find all of these things podcasted on Apple, Google, Spotify, but you could find the video content primarily on our YouTube channel, which is outlawradio.live. That's the quick link that gets you to the channel. I would encourage you to like, subscribe, share, and pass the word on the content that you enjoy. God bless.